object was then, basically each of the platforms which were folded together could contain a different function, so that the hexagon had a fashion exhibition of Prada, the cross had an art exhibition, the square had a cinema, and the round shape had another exhibition, a special event. When these functions were then folded together, this object could change its function by rotating and by providing always the different platform for each function. It was possible to rotate this object by 4 cranes. And while the different functions were changed, the interior stayed as this sculptural object, so it created very interesting interior spaces where the exhibition sometimes was actually hanging above you, or that you could find the projections in the floor. So basically this project was the closest of pure object design where what we can get. The one huge demand to our profession is also, of course, the people. We designed a concert hall in Portugal, Porto, starting from 2001. It's called Casa da Música. In the design of this concert hall, we had a totally different approach. We had a project before the concert hall started, which was rejected by the client. This was originally a one-family house in Holland, and the client didn't like the idea. So we basically thought it was still a good one, so we recycled it. So we took basically this one-family house and multiplied it 10 times to a size of a concert hall. We studied still a little bit further the form of it to make it really comply with whatever are the requirements of a concert hall. But through this kind of recycling of ideas, we got into our final design. And then inside of this shape, we had to create the best state-of-art concert hall, the real function of this architecture. And surprisingly, the best concert hall is a shoebox. It's a rectangular with just acoustical treatment on the walls. So that's what we did. We had this very diamond-like sculpted shape, and we installed there these 2 shoeboxes. But of course, we wanted also to treat the concert space in a very new way. So basically, we opened the concert hall out to the city, and we allowed the people to actually feel that they are still part of their own city, or the visitors to see that they are in Porto. And this experience was the first time ever possible in the concert hall. And it made very beautiful interactions between the functions of concert hall itself and then the city around it. So basically, due to this integration of the function directly into the city, or creating this kind of link, the concert hall space itself actually became like a public living room. The people adopted it so well that all the spaces around this shoebox concert hall were occupied very lively, also when there was no concerts, by people who were hanging around, students who come to see the space itself, by people who were rehearsing, making music, rehearsals, or people looking at the rehearsals. So it became a very informal and active public space for all the Porto people. It has a lot of performances and other activities, and it has basically a public loop around the concert hall space, so you can just enjoy our architecture. The functions which are now lively inside of this diamond can also spill out to the city, so that they can have bidirectional influence on each other. So the functions can spill out onto the big plaza around the concert hall and activate that so that the building itself becomes an active part of the port or city. Very important aspect where we base our considerations is the context. We had a chance to participate in a competition 1.5 years ago here in Seoul, also in very important location at Gwanghwamun Plaza. This was basically for the KT company, the mobile telephone company. They wanted to connect their two current headquarters from Bundang and Socho to Gwanghwamun location. They have an existing building there, and they managed to, which is kind of the pink location, and they managed to buy a second plot which was behind it, and this was the start of the design. But obviously in Gwanghwamun Plaza, and as a headquarter, you want to be very present, and you want to show your importance in Korean society. But this division of the two plots was kind of making it difficult, since just making their 3 towers would be not that creative. So we wanted in some ways connect these 2 plots into one in order to create one big headquarters for KT. So that was possible, but we then had to cut holes into the ground level of this big block in order to allow the traffic, the street to go through, and the pedestrian circulation around this block. So basically, we kind of thought that we are creating similar gate situations as the Dongdaemun or Namdaemun in a new architecture. Additionally to these cuts in the bottom of the building, we also wanted to open the top of the building. So we didn't want it to appear very heavy, and we also actually wanted to connect the workers of KT to Seoul in some ways. So we made cuts in the top of the building, and they were placed in such a way that we were studying which are the most important sites in Seoul, and we were trying to open the cuts in such locations that the workers could enjoy the best views to the main locations in Seoul. And this created a kind of architecture which reminded us of the ancient signal towers of Korea, which were basically spread all over the Korean peninsula, and signaling emergencies or other messages in ancient times with fires from tower to tower. This would be, of course, a very nice reference to a current mobile phone company, same function. So yeah, this was the final volume which we created for them. It was also possible to do it in 2 phases, so that you could start with the site behind, and you could then extend it later to the full extent of the headquarters. And as you can see in this picture, the palace, or of course everybody knows, but palace was very close, and we really had very much discussions and very much considerations of what can you do so close to such an important place in Seoul. And we tried to express with this kind of architecture the certain respect and certain modesty, not that the tower would be an overwhelming avalanche of design, but it would be quite minimal and respectful for the old architecture. The main interest of the client was, of course, to open the building as much as possible to the Gwanghwamun Plaza, which we made then with this one gate, which was a media gate, could be totally paved by the LED. But also through this media gate, the public would be able to enter the building, so that the 2 lower floors, the ground floor and the basement floor below that, were occupied by the KT's public functions. An exhibition, the KT Cafe, their Ole brand, and so forth. And people would be able to circulate in the 2 lower floors of this building and explore the KT brand image, shop for mobile phones or get their licenses. And in some ways this meandering of people below it also would connect the whole building to the Seoul subway system, because we had the subway right there. So it's not an isolated island in Seoul, it would be a natural part of the city. So through this we think that the Gwanghwamun Plaza could be activated very well. And due to this L form of the building, we also created a little like a secret garden behind the building, more for the employees only. The employee welfare was very important for KT, so we were also using all kind of, we did a deep research of what is the current workspace design, what is the best state-of-art thinking, and created workspaces that would be very comfortable for the KT workers with amazing views to the surroundings. And then, since the cuts were not separating the building into separate parts, but it still stayed together as one headquarter by this yellow zone, which is kind of a band connecting it together. In that zone, it is basically used for collaboration. That's where the people can gather for meetings. That's where the canteens are, or restaurants. That's where there's gyms. Everything provided for, basically, for the staff to get together, or then to separate to the different towers. And the zone of the collection, the collaboration was also expressed, would be expressed at night in the facade. I think this was competition we didn't win, but we still think that this was quite a good design, and our thinking kind of logical, so that's why I wanted to bring it up here. Another important design in a very challenging context is the CCTV building, with which I've been working now since 2003. CCTV building is actually a different manifesto. It's more part of the discussion which Rem has been initiating since his publishing of the book Delirious New York in 1997, and what he's been kind of discussing ever since is the competition of the skyscrapers, or the skyscrapers who always want to achieve higher and higher limits, and basically OMA would not like to go into that competition, and therefore instead of trying to do the highest building in Beijing or highest building in China, we decided to do a totally different kind of skyscraper. A skyscraper which is folded as a loop, consisting of 2 towers and the connecting part on top of it and on the bottom of it. So it basically was one of the first big towers, big projects to mark the start of the Beijing CBD. This form has received a lot of different kind of names, but basically these 2 towers which are connected on top and in the bottom, and the 2 towers are also leaning towards each other. So the form was so new that the biggest problem we had to face was, of course, the structure. How to hold up all this weight of the towers of 234 meters height. So we did a lot of structural studies as architects, but naturally we had to work together with the engineers. And in this project, the engineers were suggesting the model on the left-hand side, It's basically the most ideal structure in this location, where we also have to fulfill certain earthquake requirements, and we have these complicated tilting towers. But then, when the engineers applied the stresses which are coming onto the structure, what they proposed, we had basically these big red zones where the stresses were just coming too high to have a reasonable steel structure there. It would basically just block the whole view. So in collaboration with the engineers, we then developed the pattern which is on the right-hand side, the final structural pattern, which is basically the most important thing to know about this building. This pattern tells you how the building structure works. So basically you can see that in the corner points, there's a denser diamond structure where the stresses are higher, and then in the outside corner there's, for example, a bigger opening because there's hardly any structural stresses at all. We had to make also a test for the earthquake, so we had to build a model out of brass of 7 meters height. It was tested against the earthquake which happens every 2,500 years, and basically in case that earthquake would come, the building still would not collapse, since actually the technicians who were making the test, they were shaking this literally on the shaking table. They normally shake it as long as it really falls down, but they didn't manage to do that. So now it will be a sculpture in the garden of the client later when the building is finished. The pattern of the structure is also, it's so important that we wanted to emphasize that in the facade. So basically we did the glass facade, which is hanging outside of the structure, as a separate skin, but it follows the structural pattern from inside. And it creates this really very unique building in a normal city context, which is very easy to spot also from far away. It has very much its own identity. Then naturally, as always in architecture, or almost always, we had to consider how to put all the functions inside of this loop building. And the very important part of this building was that it was actually collecting all the functions of the client into one building. Normally, a television headquarters would have the studios outside of the city in a cheap land, and then the creative people in the old city center in restored factories, and then the administrational people in the central business district. But we wanted to connect them all into this one building. And with that, basically make it possible to increase collaboration, to allow all the staff of CCTV to be aware what the other departments are doing, and kind of to create this spirit of togetherness. So additionally to the function of the client, we then of course needed to create, to make the building work. We had to put in their elevators, 75 elevators altogether. We had to put in canteens and entrance lobbies to serve the people who work there. We had to put in about 30 studios, production studios as blue and the new studios in green. And we had to put there the administrational, the executive levels, the VIP entrances, and so forth. And then to coordinate all that into one building was a very, very intense year to do for 470,000 square meters. But the main function of the building, the televisioning, we thought is very glamorous. It's still very interesting for everybody to see, and there was no plans of the client to change that. So basically we proposed to the client that there should be some kind of space which is possible for the people to enter the building, to either see how, what the architecture is, as our own interest, or then to see an exhibition of CCTV's own history, of televisioning history in China. So we proposed for them that there should be a tourist loop, the orange path, throughout the building, and they basically agreed to it. So actually now, possibly not next year, but the year after that, you would be able to buy a ticket and enter this tourist loop, walk through the lower basement areas, see into all the production studios where they are making soap operas or game shows, and see how the television is there really made. You could buy there some souvenirs of CCTV, of their program production, and then you can take an elevator up to the overhang, to the bridge which is connecting the two towers. In that bridge, you can maybe see the 3 round holes. Shopping can continue there, but basically the 3 round holes are at the moment the most popular place of the bridge, because they are open to below, and you can see 160 meters below. So far all our visitors on site have been testing their courage by walking over these. The most important moment on site was, of course, to connect the overhang, and this required extreme calculations for the preciseness of the steel structure. There was calculations how the weight of the steel gradually pushes the towers down to the right angle, and then basically both sides should meet in the same height. At some point they came to this situation where there was basically one loose steel beam then connecting the 2 towers together. And the first official connection here with the beam and the big bolts was celebrated with the flags and pompons, as typical in China. All the workers on site, they were very proud of this project. So basically, we also found a poem written on a column on site, which was expressing the pride of the Chinese workers to be part of it. So it has been quite a special project. The press has been following it constantly. We have had good and bad press. We're still dealing with all of that. There has been advertisement has been interested of this project because it would be, of course, a great place for any kind of branding. So we allowed at some point, or the client allowed Nike to use it as a projection background during the Olympics. We have had a lot of tourists already visiting the building or coming to see the building. It's used widely now as an icon of Beijing. And a certain obsession of the building is also, the office leader, Rem Koolhaas himself, is visiting us about every month or every 6 weeks on site and photographing the building himself. The design team or the site team, we are going around in the city to find all kind of new angles, how to see the building in its context in the city. And this photograph is by a photographer who basically started to photograph it 4 years ago, since he hated the building, and now we're actually collaborating with him because he has been going around it now so long and getting more and more obsessed, but he's also found this certain beauty in it. And so we are working now together. There are artists who have created already art of the building. This is from Chinese artist Peng, called Why Should I Love You?, which we really love, actually, this work. So we think that this building is an interesting continuation of the Beijing's historical city. It is part of the new CBD, Central Business District, and it has a very strong own image. It's clearly an iconic building, but it suits to the growing growth of the Beijing, and it will also not be alone in the future, which is actually why it was also made. It will be in a forest of skyscrapers, because the Beijing Central Business District will expand in the coming years by 15 new towers just south of the CCTV building. So we're actually looking forward of being among all these other towers, which are basically the towers we made our argument against in the beginning. You might also know about the other building which belongs to the composition, the TVCC building, here in the foreground. TVCC building is basically an opposite design to CCTV. CCTV is a pure form containing all the functions. In TVCC, the functions are expressed all as different blocks. Basically, the top part is hotel, Mandarin Oriental, and the lower part will be television theater. This is the top part, the hotel rooms, all expressed as separate pixels. And through all these functions, then we layered a roof over it to collect them all together. So in the ground floor, the television theater is the main function, and it's basically cutting through the whole ground floor. So when you enter the floor, you could basically see directly into the stage, because we lifted up the whole audience so that you would be able to have this view from the entrance to the stage. And TVCC building, as you might know, it was accidentally burnt in 2009 Lantern Festival, and it's now under reconstruction. So we are expecting an opening in 2.5 years. But OMA's architectural practice, we are understanding architecture in a very wide sense. And we are not only doing buildings, we are actually participating, or Rem himself is participating in, as advisor, for example, to the European Union. We have our counterpart AMO, which is basically a think tank, which is doing all the non-architectural, non-building projects of our office. So this is one of the projects which AMO did based on European Union's request of analyzing how to integrate, how to increase the renewable energy production in Europe. And this is, you might recognize, on the left side there's England, on the top there's Norway, and on the lower side there's Holland and France and Belgium. This was basically a research where to locate wind farms in the North Sea. And it was done together with a lot of biologists, geologists, energy advisors to find the perfect locations for the wind energy mills, and to also find a system how to connect then the produced energy to the land. So it basically created this ring, which was an ideal depth in the sea, and also still provided like enough closeness to the land. Basically, this project was only the start, because the European Union considered then after that further, they are very dependent on imported energy, and they have basically made a promise that they would reduce the CO2 emissions by 80% until 2050. And this can basically only be done with the renewable energy. So AMO, our think tank, was again asked to produce a proposal how to do that, and also to make a report which will be understandable to every layperson, not just for the technical experts. So after we analyzed on the right-hand side, you can see there's like the north with the blue coloring will get a lot of wind energy. The south with the yellow coloring will get a lot of sun energy. But and in case we would be able to share that energy, we would have actually a constant energy production throughout the year. And that was basically what we proposed. We proposed that Europe should consider their energy production as one big union, as it is named also now, and create a grid which is exchanging the energy as based on the need of each region. This energy loop could also be then extended all the way to the northern Sahara, which has a lot of space and which would produce additional solar energy. So basically we were really analyzing on a macro scale the whole European energy grid, and we were then proposing a new system of in which way the energy could be shared so that the renewable energies could become the main source of energy in Europe in the future. So all these projects are basically done in huge teams. There's additional to REM, we have at the moment about 350, 400 people working on these ideas, and REM also is emphasizing the importance of the teamwork. It's the team, and it's also the different nationalities of the people which are bringing different backgrounds together, and that's creating this kind of very fruitful soil for all kind of ideas and all kind of interactions. And we are also doing that not only inside of OMA and AMO, which is our counterpart, but we are expanding our collaborations also to elsewhere in the world. So we basically are trying to find always the intelligent and creative collaboration partners to solve our creative problems in the best possible way. Thank you.